All set?
All set.
Start the plungers. Here she goes. Bring her back. We'll try another run in 10 minutes.
How's it going?
There's the question. Now all we need is the answer.
We'll have to wait. The superintendent wants to see you.
Now?
No.
But we're just starting another run.
I'll take over.
What's so important?
You didn't say. What is that?
Now that's what I call guts.
What?
Roy, paying his last respects.
Must be going through hell.
It was nothing to what poor Blakely went through.
Just be grateful it wasn't your decision.
If it had been me, I'd have got airborne somehow.
Are you qualified to fly a Wasp, or?
No, sir.
Then you wouldn't have got very far, would you?
No, sir.
If the officers start talking like that, it'll soon get below decks.
I'm very much afraid it already has some. The master tried to nip it in the bud, but Blakely was pretty popular. Come in.
Wanted to see me, Mr. Barron?
Yes, Graham. Sit down. I've just had a telephone call from your sister.
Gwen?
They told her you were busy, so she asked to be transferred to me.
I could have called her back.
She said she'd prefer it if I broke the news. She sounded very distressed.
What news?
Your brother-in-law. I'm afraid he's dead. I'm very sorry.
When?
Late last night.
What was it? An accident?
No, I gather it was acute peritonitis.
Well, Hero's due alongside today. She can't have been that far from land.
Bay of Biscay, I believe.
Then what about the helicopter?
There have been severe gales all over the Atlantic.
So?
Conditions were outside the Wasp's operating envelope. We don't know the sea state, how much the ship was rolling.
But a man's life was at stake. Any flight commander with his soul...
Graham, neither of us was there. I realize how you feel, but I'm sure no one was to blame. Look, why don't you take the rest of the day off, go and see your sister, help her sort herself out?
I'll go tomorrow.
Why not now? Mike can hold the fort for you.
No, sir. It might be 6 months before the tank's free again. I have to make the most of it.
Hello, Sue. Come in. Derek? Sit yourselves down.
How are the Canaries?
Fine. Well, we had a rough run home.
That ambulance on the jetty. Somebody hurt?
Dead.
Who?
Leading cook. Peritonitis. We couldn't get him to hospital in time.
I'm sorry.
So am I. Especially for the flight commander.
Why?
Couldn't fly him ashore.
Couldn't.
But don't tell me you agree with Peake.
All I know is what I'd have done.
All right, what would you have done?
Taken the chance. Conditions weren't that bad.
They were outside the operating envelope.
The what?
The limits within which it's safe to fly the Wasp. If the ship's rolling too much or the wind's too strong, it can be very dangerous.
So this was an emergency.
What do you know about Roy Tagg's history?
Is he the flight commander?
Yes.
I know he was severely reprimanded just before joining us.
You know what for?
No?
For losing a Wasp while flying outside the envelope.
I see.
Disciplined for breaking the rules, blamed for sticking to them. Can't win, can he?
Suppose I invite him to dinner.
Yes, when?
Tonight.
At my place.
I'd like to talk to him away from the ship. Well, if you're there, it won't be quite so obvious.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, Roy.
Hello, Bill.
Snap out of it, Roy. Life has to go on, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Look, no one doubts you. And no one's forgotten that Arctic mission with you out flying in that blizzard.
That proved nothing. If the ship had got trapped in the ice or gone down, I'd have had nowhere else to go. And it's easy to be brave when there's no alternative. But last night...
It was your decision.
And it was my decision in Feeton, too. That night I went. So they court-martialed me.
Yes, you ditched the aircraft, didn't you?
Because I should never have taken off. But it was my first job as flight commander. The captain was keen. And we were exercising with the Americans. We had to put on a show for them. I put on a show for them, all right. They spent half the night looking for me.
Well, it wouldn't have achieved much if you'd taken off last night and killed yourself and your crewman and bleeding cook Blakely.
Told that to them on the mess decks. And in here.
And not in here. The officers are on your side.
Huh? I'm waiting for the navigator to hand me a white feather.
Well, that's an emotional reaction. He used to play rugby with Blakely.
Well, he wants to keep on playing rugby. He'd better be careful.
What?
He won't be much good in the scrum with a broken neck.
Anything new?
We kept the same wave frequency, reduced the speed to 23 knots. You're still broached.
Thanks, Mike. Can I have a word? How about doing a Nelson for the rest of this afternoon?
A Nelson?
Turning a blind eye. I want to try an experiment that's outside the present series.
Wouldn't have anything to do with rudders, would it?
Maybe.
Graham, you're not ready for that yet. If you go off at half cock, you might set the whole thing back a couple of years.
You know why the superintendent sent for me, don't you? If I tell you that my brother-in-law died because the ship was rolling too much, would that make a difference?
I don't know anything about it, okay?
Suppose it works.
Oh, then, of course, it suddenly becomes my project.
Set up the camera, will you, Harry? I want the next run on tape.
Right. Okay.
Brian, can you fix me up a manual control?
I wasn't dripping. I was just letting off steam.
Steam is an inefficient source of energy. Besides, you were wrong.
What about?
Roy, I wouldn't have risked the Wasp in those conditions.
Not even to save a life?
You might have added another death.
I don't agree.
Well, you don't have to agree. All you have to do is keep your opinions to yourself.
Going ashore, Paul?
Maybe. Aren't you staying on board?
Why?
Why what?
Why should I be staying on board?
No reason.
Well, since you're both so curious to know what I'm doing, I'll tell you. I might be going ashore, or I might not. But don't quote me.
Ah, Roy. Captain wants to see you.
Right.
Carpet time. Dinner time.
Stand by, camera. We're starting a run.
Plunges to maximum. I'm going to be watching the dial. You keep an eye on the model and tell me what happens.
What are you up to?
Just testing a theory.
Tell me about it?
Not yet. I might be making a fool of myself. Here we go. Well?
I don't believe it.
It worked.
Like a dream. What were you using? ESP?
Don't look so surprised, Harry. I always told you I was a genius.
Dinner is served.
Ah.
And she cooks as well.
Yeah, she cooks, sews, and pulls out wisdom teeth. What more could a man ask for?
Where on earth did you find her?
Well, it's a very interesting story. When I first met her, she was a flower girl in Covent Garden. Had an appalling Cockney accent. So I took her in hand.
Gave her elocution lessons.
Turned her into a lady. Taught her all I know about needlework and crochet and so on. Now, by George, I really think she's got it.
What a male chauvinist theory. The truth is, Roy, whenever he has a difficult decision to make, he calls me and asks me what to do.
I wish I'd known.
Forget it, Roy. As far as I'm concerned, you made the right decision.
And as far as the ship's company is concerned?
Wasn't theirs to make.
I wish it was as simple as that.
Meaning?
I used to be sure, before I ditched my last cab. I used to be sure that when I decided not to fly, I was thinking only of the weather.
Okay, so you've lost a bit of confidence. It's natural after what you've been through.
I don't think it is.
Well, I do, and I'm older and maybe even a little wiser. In aviation matters, anyway.
It was his age that first attracted me to him. I was walking through Covent Garden with my basket of white heather when I saw this doddering old gentleman with a stick. Ow, I says in my best Cockney. A grandfather substitute.
Thank you.
Maybe I should try it.
What?
Walk through the market.
Impressive. Very impressive. What's the secret?
Rudder stabilization, sir.
I thought we decided that wasn't practicable on Leander's.
I believe it is. I've done quite a lot of research on the rudders, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work.
How many test runs have you done?
Just one.
Steering manually?
Yeah.
I can't recommend a demonstration on the basis of a single run. You know what Bath are like. They'll want detailed figures in triplicate.
But they can have them.
What's the principle?
Well, as you know, the rudders are used to turn the ship, and the fins are used to reduce the rolling motion. Well, I believe that we can make the rudders do both jobs, and it could be more efficient than the fins.
How much would they reduce the roll?
Possibly 50%. It'd mean an increase in speed, added control...
And a steadier platform for the Wasp?
Yes, sir.
How soon can you be ready?
A couple of days.
All right. But if it turns out I've invited Chief of Design down here on a wild goose chase, heads will roll.
Your passes, please. Thank you, you're expected. Carry on.
Drive on.
Excuse my rig.
I thought you were disembarking to leave.
Well, the wind's in the wrong direction. Can't get off without flying through a crane and a couple of sheds.
Bad luck.
Yeah.
Take a seat.
Now then, Howard. It's roll stabilization by rudder, eh?
That's right.
Both rudders?
Yes.
Who's the mastermind?
Young chap called Firth. Bit of a maverick, but his head of section thinks highly of him.
You've seen a test run?
Only a videotape, but pretty spectacular. Could make the fins obsolete.
Mr. Edwards here doesn't like it.
Why not?
It's dangerous. The rudders weren't designed as stabilizers. I doubt if they'd stand up to it.
Firth thinks they will.
How old is he?
25.
And fresh from the university, I suppose.
He's been with us for 3 years. He's done some useful work on cavitation.
Another of your infant prodigies, eh? 3 years playing with a toy and he thinks he can revolutionize the Navy. Well, I don't care how spectacular the tank tests are. I'm opposing a full-scale evaluation.
Oh, come, let's at least pretend to keep an open mind.
There's too much at stake. Let this crank loose with a real Leander, and you'll better have another frigate standing by to take her in tow.
They've arrived.
How many?
2. Edwards and Clark.
I can just steer them. Tell that young whippersnapper to leave our beautiful ship alone. If he starts messing with it, he might break the rubber band.
Well, they've got to be sure you know what you're doing. By the way...
What?
Do you know what you're doing? Afternoon, gentlemen. This is Mr. Firth, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Clark.
Harry, the audience is here. Can we start the performance? Off we go, then.
Let's go back to the office.
Still say it's dangerous. When the rudders are steering the ship, the machinery is operating within known limits. Use them as stabilizers, you could overstress overheat, cause a fire. Then your ship is out of control.
They were tested thoroughly. They took everything we could throw at them.
You can't test the sort of pressure we're talking about. It's an unknown quantity.
That's why I want a sea trial.
Perhaps in a year's time when you've done some more research.
There's nothing more we can do. We've proved it works on the model. Now we need a full-size ship.
What's wrong with the fins? They're perfectly adequate.
No, they're not. If Hero had had rudder stabilization, my brother-in-law might still be alive.
It could be worth a gamble. Improved habitability, steadier weapon platform, and so on. You prepared to stick your neck out, Howard?
If you are.
I'll see if there's a Leander available.
Hero's alongside. Across the way.
Hero?
Commander?
Thank you.
Hello? Yes, Derek. No, he's looking at the pictures in my newspaper. Derek. Checking up on you.
Well. Yes, Derek. What? That sounds suitably daft. What about the submarine exercise? Oh, well, if this takes precedence, I suppose someone must think it's important. Yes. Thanks.
Sailing?
9 o'clock. Some boffins from Gosport are going to experiment on us.
Doing what?
Rudder stabilization?
Yeah.
Well, rudders were meant for steering.
So did I.
How can they act as stabilizers?
I'm not sure, but it's an interesting idea.
If it's practical.
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
4 of them. Edwards from Bath, this chap Firth, and 2 technicians from Hasler. Can we fix them up with bunks?
I'll look at it. I trust this boffin knows what he's doing. I don't fancy a steering breakdown in the channel.
Neither do I. Still, we mustn't stand in the way of progress, I suppose. Come in.
Mr. Edwards, sir. Commander James.
Welcome on board.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you, Derek.
Sir.
You've seen your cabin, sir?
Yes.
Satisfactory?
Should be. I helped design it.
So, no complaints, then?
My only complaint is that these trials have received official approval.
I thought the chief of design agreed.
He did. However, I've made my protest in writing.
Drink?
Any Angostura?
Yes.
I'll have a pink gin.
Okay. Sit down.
Thank you.
You met this chap, Firth?
Oh, yes.
And?
A young bearded wonder from the north.
You disapprove of his youth, his beard, or his birthplace?
His arrogance, his impatience, and his obvious contempt. He seems to think that Rome was built in about 5 seconds. No, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You don't believe in rudder stabilization?
I believe it's possible, but not yet. Not until we've done a lot more research.
Now, why is he in such a hurry?
You mean you don't know?
This is the electrical maintenance room.
Could do with a few pin-ups. Where do I get my power supply?
There.
What about my control signal?
Well, you could put it there.
Okay. Now take me to your leader. I've got to give him his orders.
10 trial runs.
That's right, sir.
Different speeds, various headings. These correspond with the series you've run in the tank.
Well, not exactly.
One of them does. Precisely one.
One?
All we needed to test was the principle.
And you're satisfied the rudders will stand up to it?
I wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
Now, drink.
Thanks. I'll have whatever he's having.
It's a pink gin.
So?
You're happy with the rudder control requirements, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Power supply is sufficient?
No problem, sir.
Oh, there's one more thing, sir.
Yes?
Would it be possible to have someone film the ship from the Wasp? It'd be useful to have a visual record.
I'll ask the flight commander.
Thanks. Cooperative sort of bloke, is he?
I'm sure he'll do everything he can. Well, success.
Thanks.
And a safe return.
Chart recorder.
Ready?
Stabilized power supplies.
All checked out.
Right. Inject calibration signal. Going through?
Loud and clear.
Right, Commander Kiley. We're ready for you.
Film it. He says it'll be useful.
Right, sir.
Roy,
Sir?
this chap Firth. He's Blakely's brother-in-law.
Oh,
Could be difficult.
yes.
Any trouble, and I want to know about it.
Right, sir.
Sauna domes, oil rig moorings, submarine snort masts, you name it, we test it.
How about rudders?
Rudders? You mean those flat things at the blunt end? No, we don't know anything about them. Pass the salt, would you, old son? I'll let you into a little secret, lads. Mr. Edwards here doesn't approve of me. All right, Mr. Edwards?
That's right, Mr. Firth.
He's jealous, you see. He sits in his office at Bath, drawing his ships. Beautiful pictures they are, works of art. And then we come along and spoil them all.
Ah, Roy. This is Mr. Edwards and Mr. Firth. This is Roy Tagg, our flight commander.
How do you do?
Sir? Hello.
Not the Roy Tagg, Wizard of the Whirlybirds.
What?
Oh, you've quite a reputation around our way. You're famous. Well, perhaps that's not quite the right word. Notorious?
I hear you're related to Blakely.
By marriage, yeah.
Tragic business. I'm sorry.
So's my sister and her 3 kids. Very sorry. You gonna take snaps for me?
Hope so, if the weather holds.
You mean if there's no wind?
Something like that.
I'd like to start with run serial number 1.2. Sir.
1.2. Come left to 340, speed 12.
Aye, sir. Port 10.
Port 10. 10 to port we on, sir.
Revolutions 8-4.
Revolutions 8-4. 8-4 revolutions passed and repeated, sir.
Very good.
Course 340, sir.
340, sir. Speed 12. Reverse stabilizers.
Reverse stabilizers. And you hear there the ship is about to roll heavily.
All yours.
Brian, commence run in 1 minute from now. Start recording now. Initiate control signal now.
Next one.
Run serial number 3.5, sir.
Starboard to north, pilot. 15 knots.
Starboard 10, revolutions 104.
Starboard 10, revolutions 104.
Bridge 80, the Wasp has trouble. Request emergency recovery.
Midships.
Midships.
Steer 355.
Steer 355.
Roger, steadying 355. Wind is red 15. FDO, Captain, do you copy?
No, sir.
Abort the trial, Mr. Firth.
Do you hear that? Stand by for emergency landing. Clear the upper deck.
Abort the trial.
Crash boat crew, close up. Stop after ventilation. No smoking throughout the ship.
HCO, Captain, what's the problem?
Unidentified knocking and vibration, sir.
Roger.
Steady as you can, Quartermaster. We have the Wasp landing in emergency.
Roy, what's the score?
I'm not sure, sir, but I'm grounding the cab until we find out.
A knocking?
Vibration back through the controls.
Right. Do me an op-def signal on the Wasp. Let me know when you have anything.
Right, sir.
Want me to translate it for you?
I'm familiar with the language, thank you.
Let's have a look. Solid as a rock.
1 speed, 1 heading. Got a long way to go yet.
Every cloud has a black line in it. You want these trials to fail, don't you?
Of course not.
Yes, you do. You think your ship's so perfect it can't be improved.
It is far from perfect. But it was designed and constructed after years of research. Its maneuvering characteristics have been accurately computed. Its hull has been tested section by section. Its sea-keeping limits have been defined. I don't object to modifications, but they must be made with the same care. Care that I don't consider you've taken.
Firth.
Your film.
Oh, you got back all right then.
As you see.
You're going to make an habit of it, are you?
What?
Interrupting my trials.
It might be better if it did.
What rumours?
That there's nothing wrong with the Wasp.
A bit premature, isn't it?
Well, the master's just trying to anticipate trouble. If the maintenance crew don't find anything, it'd be bad for morale.
And do you think they won't?
I'm trying to keep an open mind.
Do you think Roy's twitched?
If you want my opinion, the only thing that were knocking were his knees.
You think he made it up?
Don't you?
No. He thought he felt something.
Like he thought it was too dangerous to get my brother-in-law to hospital.
There was a force 10 gale blowing. He didn't imagine that.
They should ground him.
He's a good pilot.
That's not what your ship's company's saying.
Are you sure?
There was a knocking, sir.
Which you couldn't identify?
No, but it was there.
Where?
I could feel it through the cyclic control. It was intermittent. I couldn't isolate it.
Has the maintenance chief given you a preliminary report?
Yes.
And?
Oh, they can't trace it. Yet.
And if they don't trace it?
Then we'll try a ground run. If that fails to reproduce it, I'll accept it.
Roy.
I am not cracking up, sir.
I don't think you are. I just think it's better to talk about your problems than bury them.
Nothing to talk about, sir.
Right.
Sir.
Roy.
Sir.
The door's always open.
Thank you, sir.
Damn.
See this film? I could get a fortune for that at Sotheby's.
Oh, why?
Rarity value. The only visual record of the momentous sea trials conducted by the great Graham Firth.
What about the other runs?
Unfortunately, they'll have to be conducted in camera. And I don't mean the aerial camera. That shutter will click no more, owing to the fact that the flight commander will be too busy searching for his phantom knocker. Ah, come in also. We were just talking about you.
Really?
Yeah, really. We were just saying, or rather, I was just saying in my inimitable Lancashire manner, that the rest of the trials will go unrecorded on celluloid.
Not necessarily.
Oh, almost certainly, wouldn't you think? I mean, what are the odds against them coming up with the source of that little trouble of yours, eh? 1,000 to 1? 2,000?
A good deal less than that. The maintenance crew are very efficient.
You think they'll come up with something? Yeah, I expect they will. After all, you flyboys always stick together in a situation like this, don't you?
A situation like what?
Well, it's a question of saving face, isn't it? I mean, it'd never do if it turned out you were wrong.
Suppose I was right, Mr. Firth. Suppose the Wasp crashed while we were taking your film.
I'd say that's a pretty long shot.
You'd say. Then it's not your life, is it?
You're the pilot.
And there's the photographer.
Oh, it's him you're worried about.
He's my responsibility.
Very convenient.
Have you been up in a Wasp?
No.
You fancy a trip?
When?
Tomorrow?
Won't they still be taking it to pieces?
No, they'll finish tonight.
What about the knocking?
I thought you didn't believe me.
As a matter of fact, I don't.
Well?
I can't. I have to stay on board and supervise the trials.
Very convenient.
Feel better now?
Sooner or later I had to hit back.
Well, you certainly called his bluff.
You think I was bluffing?
Well, you'd have taken him up in a faulty aircraft.
No, of course not. But if the boys give it a clean bill of health, he'd have had a ride to remember for the rest of his life.
Why me? I'm not a scientist.
There's nothing to it. I'll give you a list of the runs. All you have to do is pass the orders down to the boys in the basement.
I know what you're up to. You're trying to get me involved in these tests of yours. Then when they blow up in your face, you'll have an alibi. Well, I'm having nothing whatever to do with them.
You've made your protest, so you're protected from any fallout.
Hedging your bets, eh?
Maybe.
What's the catch?
No catch. It'll help you to make a proper evaluation, and it'll release me for other duties.
Such as?
I want to do the filming. Make sure we get the right stuff.
All right.
Thanks.
But I want one thing completely understood.
What?
If anything goes wrong, it's your responsibility.
Check. We've both got to be sure, Mr. Edwards. One way or another.
So they both want to go?
Unless the maintenance crew come up with something, yes, sir.
What happened?
Well, Firth came back into the wardroom, walked straight up to Roy and said, about that trip tomorrow, you're on. Roy just nodded. What worried me was they both looked so damn pleased with themselves.
Think I should stop it?
Well, they're not likely to come to blows in the air, sir.
No, but Roy's under pressure now to make the Wasp operational.
What about the knocking?
Well, he wouldn't fly an
He
unserved.
might.
But you could stop it. Or we could try and get one of them packed up.
Roy can't. It would put him in an impossible position.
I could try a little gentle persuasion, sir.
Yes, see what you can do.
Firth's been getting at Roy ever since he came on board, sir. In my opinion, he's the one who ought to back down.
The trouble is he's got a perfectly legitimate reason for flying.
Well, you could have a word with Firth, sir.
Yes. Ask him to bring Edwards with him.
Sir.
But you don't have to prove anything. Oh, we know he's wrong.
Do you? Oh. It seems to me there are one or two other minds around here that need changing.
That's nonsense.
No, it's not. Until I get that cab back in the air, Firth can have a field day.
I want to take some film.
I've already detailed a man for that.
I know, but he doesn't know what to look for, the correct angles and so on.
Oh. I thought you'd fully briefed him.
I did. But it's not often I get a real live frigate to play with, and I want to make sure I have the right material to show the folks back home.
Hmm. Leaving Mr. Edwards to conduct the trials.
That's right.
You happy about that, Mr. Edwards?
I'm honored.
I'm not keen on putting untrained civilian passengers up in the Wasp.
I've been through the Dunker at Leon Solar. Full safety briefing.
Yes, but that's not the point.
Ah, you don't trust the flight commander?
I do trust my flight commander, Mr. Firth.
Good. So do I.
Start recording now. Initiate control signal now.
Firth being given the treatment?
Yes. I'm sorry to spoil his fun. HCO Captain, tell 7-1 to abandon the aerobatics forthwith. He's supposed to be conducting a trial.
Roger that.
7-1, abandon the aerobatics.
I should have guessed that was Roy's get.
Are they proving his airmanship, sir?
Well, not by taking the mast away. If he wants to put the...
7-1 has an emergency.
Not again. Bridge, roger. Steady.
Steady.
Steady, sir. 168. Bridge 7-1 reports vibration and restriction on cyclic control movement.
Does he intend to ditch?
From the command, do you intend to ditch?
Negative. To find out what's wrong with us. I'll try for more. He wants to land on. If you can give him a steady platform, he'll try to use a long shower approach over the quarter and a running landing.
The flight deck crew cleared the aircraft.
Intermittent faults are the hardest things to find, Paul. We can't reproduce exact conditions on the deck.
If Roy can get her down.
He may save other aircraft and other lives. Mr. Edwards, advice, please. Do we stick to rudder stabilization or go back to the fins? I remember the Wasp has very limited maneuverability. It needs the steadiest deck we can give it.
Rudders.
Thank you.
Mr. Firth did want a practical demonstration.
And Roy wanted to prove his airmanship, I know. FTO, Captain, bring him on. You hear there? Captain speaking. The Wasp has just landed with partial control failure. It was a difficult and dangerous maneuver. The flight commander is to be congratulated for achieving it. That is all.
That should lay a few ghosts.
I hope so.
Wait a minute. Seems I owe you an apology.
Well, it seems I owe you one.
Why?
Rudder stabilization. I didn't believe in it.
You're not the only one.
You think you'll get Edwards to apologize?
Oh, I'm not after old world courtesies.
What then?
Unconditional surrender.
Come in. Well, gentlemen, I reckon you've both earned a drink. Roy?
Thank you, sir. I could do with a beer.
Sit down.
Go, Roy.
What about you, Mr. Firth? Pink gin?
Doesn't do anything for me, sir. I'll have what he's having.